Hello everyone, and welcome. I'm excited to kick off our presentation today on Mega Goal 3.2. This is Unit 10, and the theme is, they said, we said, listen and discuss. Today, we're going to explore how effective listening and discussion can help us better understand different perspectives. We'll look at some key strategies and practical tips to improve our communication skills. So let's get started and dive into this engaging topic together. Let's take a closer look at the word gossip. As you can see, gossip can function both as a noun and a verb. When we talk about gossip as a noun, we're referring to the talk or rumors that people spread about the personal affairs of others. It's that chatter that often focuses on what others are doing privately. As a verb, gossip is the act of sharing those rumors or talking about someone in a way that might not always be respectful or accurate. Understanding this dual nature is important because it helps us recognize how gossip influences social interactions. Throughout this presentation, we'll explore the impact of gossip and how we can handle it better in our lives. Today, I want to start by sharing a powerful quote from Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. This quote really encapsulates some of the core values we're discussing today. As I read it aloud, I encourage you to think about its meaning and how it connects to our overall theme. Pause briefly before reading the quote. Remember, this message is not just about words. It's about the principles that guide us in everyday life, values like compassion, integrity, and humility. These qualities are essential for building understanding and harmony in our communities. So, as we move forward, keep in mind how these timeless teachings can inspire us all to act with kindness and respect toward others. On this slide, we're talking about gossiping or talking about other people. So let's think about what all these people are doing. They're engaging in conversation, sharing stories, perhaps about others, which is what we call gossip. Now, you might be wondering, what is this place called? It's called the Gossip Cafe. And as the name suggests, it's a place where people gather to chat, sometimes about others. So what kind of place is this? It's a cafe, a casual spot where people come to relax and talk. This example helps us understand how social environments, like cafes, can be places where conversations, including gossip, naturally happen. It ties into our overall theme of social interactions and communication, showing us how these spaces influence the way people connect and share information. What this slide is really getting at is a common human tendency. We all enjoy hearing gossip about others. It's almost like a guilty pleasure. But at the same time, when the tables are turned and someone gossips about us, it feels very different. It's uncomfortable, even hurtful. This quote highlights that paradox. It points out that while gossiping about others might seem harmless or even entertaining, it's a different story when it's happening to us. Understanding this double standard is important because it ties into the larger theme of how we interact with others and the importance of empathy. Recognizing that everyone is sensitive to gossip about themselves helps us become more mindful and respectful in our conversations. So, when we see this quote, it reminds us to consider how our words affect others, even if we don't realize it at the moment. It's about being aware of the impact of our speech and fostering a more respectful environment. So, what does this quote really mean? It's highlighting a simple but powerful truth about gossip and trust. If someone is willing to talk about others behind their back with you, it's a pretty good indicator that they might do the same about you with others. It's about consistency in behavior. If they gossip about others to you, it's likely they'll gossip about you to others as well. This kind of behavior can really undermine trust and damage relationships. This idea ties into our overall theme of building healthy, trustworthy connections. It's a reminder to be cautious about who we confide in and to pay attention to how people handle other people's secrets. Because ultimately, the way someone gossips about others is a window into how they might treat us in turn. So, it's not just about gossip. It's about understanding character and safeguarding our own integrity. So, looking at this quote, it suggests that when you receive praise, it can sometimes spark jealousy in others. And this jealousy might lead people to reveal more than they intend to, perhaps sharing details that weren't meant to be shared. It's an interesting dynamic because it highlights how praise, while positive for you, can have unintended consequences in your relationships. Now, what does quote number 4 really mean in this context? Well, it's emphasizing that when people see you succeeding or receiving recognition, they might become envious. That envy can motivate them to let their guard down or be more open, revealing information they normally wouldn't. This ties into our overall theme today, understanding human behavior and how perceptions influence actions. Recognizing these patterns helps us navigate social situations more effectively, whether we're managing relationships or protecting our own interests. So, the key takeaway here is to be aware of the potential repercussions of praise. Sometimes it can open doors, but other times, it might lead to more vulnerability than expected. Let's take a moment to reflect on this quote. It suggests that small-minded people tend to engage in gossip because they don't have much going on in their own lives. Essentially, they fill their time and minds by talking about others, which can be a way of entertaining themselves or feeling a sense of importance. This highlights a key point about mindset and focus. When our lives lack purpose or growth, we might resort to negative behaviors like gossip. It also ties into the broader theme of this presentation, which is about how our mindset shapes our actions and overall well-being. So, understanding this quote reminds us to focus on enriching our own lives, rather than getting caught up in trivial distractions that don't serve us. It's a call to elevate our thinking and stay committed to positive, meaningful pursuits. So, what this means is that if there's nothing interesting to talk about when it comes to you, it might actually be a sign that you're living a boring or unfulfilling life. Essentially, if your life isn't providing you with stories or experiences worth sharing, it could indicate that you're not engaging deeply with the world around you. The idea here is that a vibrant, meaningful life naturally creates opportunities for conversation and connection. When your life is full of interesting moments, those moments become part of your story, and others are naturally drawn to hear about them. This connects to the larger theme of the presentation, which is about living intentionally and creating a life that's worth talking about. It's not about seeking attention, but rather about cultivating experiences and relationships that enrich your life and make your story compelling. So, the key takeaway is that the richness of your life is reflected in what you have to share, and if you find yourself with little to talk about, it might be time to seek new experiences or make some changes to live more fully. Let's take a moment to break down what this slide is really saying. First, a gossip is someone who enjoys discussing other people's lives. That means they find pleasure in sharing and listening to stories about others, often focusing on personal details. Next, we have a bore, someone who only talks about themselves. This person tends to dominate conversations by centering everything around their own experiences, which can make interactions feel one-sided or uninteresting. Now, the interesting part is the brilliant. A brilliant person shows genuine interest in talking about you. They listen, ask questions, and make you feel valued in the conversation. This highlights an important point about meaningful communication. It's not just about talking or sharing, but about showing real interest in others. So, what does quote number 11 mean in this context? It emphasizes that true brilliance lies in caring about others and making them feel heard. It connects to the overall theme of our presentation, which is about developing better interpersonal skills. Being aware of how we engage with others can transform our interactions from superficial to truly impactful. Let's take a closer look at this slide. As you can see, we've got a sequence of letters, F, E, G, B, C, a D, H now. At first glance, it might seem like just a random collection, but actually, these letters represent key points or steps in a process that we're exploring today. The order here is important because it highlights how each element connects to the next, forming a logical flow. For example, starting with F, which might stand for a foundational concept or initial step, then moving through E and G, building on that foundation. As we progress to B and C, we're layering additional details or considerations. When we reach a end, we're probably reaching critical points that tie everything together. And finally, H signifies the culmination or the overall outcome of this sequence. What's important to remember is that this arrangement isn't random. It's designed to help us understand the progression of ideas or actions in a way that makes sense within the bigger picture we've been discussing throughout this presentation. Each letter, Each step plays a role in helping us see the connections and the flow from start to finish. So, keep this sequence in mind as a roadmap for how these concepts interrelate and how they contribute to our overall goal. Let's talk about gossip and privacy a bit. Will Rogers, for example, did not like being gossiped about, which makes sense. Most of us prefer to keep our private lives private. On the other hand, Oscar Wilde actually enjoyed being the subject of gossip, which shows how different people's attitudes can be. Now, one key point here is that people tend to be more interested in talking about others' faults rather than their virtues. This tendency reveals that friends might not always be trustworthy when it comes to keeping things confidential. In fact, it's often the case that nothing remains truly private anymore. If you have a friend who loves to gossip about others, it's probably safe to assume they might be gossiping about you behind your back as well. That's something important to keep in mind when choosing who to confide in. I personally agree with the quote from George Bernard Shaw, which says that people are always eager to learn others' secrets. It highlights a natural curiosity about others' lives, but it also reminds us to be cautious about what we share. However, I disagree with the Spanish proverb that suggests friends enjoy gossiping about each other. I believe that genuine friends wouldn't gossip about one another, even if they do enjoy talking about other people. True friendship is built on trust and respect, not on sharing secrets or gossip. So overall, this ties into our theme of relationships and the importance of trust. Whether or not we enjoy gossip, it's crucial to consider how our words affect others, and to be mindful of who we trust with our own secrets.